Alrighty, we are back. We designed our part. Now I want to show you how to manufacture it on our plasma cutter. So, boom, we got it. We're in design. We want to take it and we want to go into manufacture. Now I can't change this thing anymore, but I'm going to tell the plasma cutter how to cut it out. First thing, always inches. Inches, we're good. Well, whatever units you want it to be in our case, inches. Okay? Alright, so how I like to do it personally is just kind of start left to right and change the things that need to be changed. So first thing, setup. We don't have to worry about nest. We're going to go into setup. A few things that need to be here. First thing, you do need to make sure that it is on cutting. Now, one thing, you might want to make yourself just a little cheat sheet. All the stuff that you need to change, that is up to you unless you want to reference the video again. Okay, so you got it on cutting. You don't have to change the machine yet. We will later on. I hit it. I don't know if it's, yep, it's coming. All machines are hidden by filters. That's fine. As long as you have cutting here, that's great. Orientation. If you are looking down on the Z axis, you're absolutely fine with orientation. If you didn't do that correctly in the design setup, then you're going to have to mess with the orientation. But it's way easier just to mess with that in the design setup. Alright, let's see here, down here, boom, stock point. That's just where to start, the origin. It wants to start right now in the middle. I don't want it to start in the middle. I want to go down here. There's a couple ways. I'm just going to mess around with it. Select that. Nope, that didn't work. Select it. Oh, I selected that point, then I went to selected point, and it went ahead and moved down there. I always try and start my, just because of the way the machine is set up, I start my cuts on the lower left. Okay? You do it how you want to do it. I'm going to keep doing lower left. Alright? So that's origin. That's all we need to change here. Now, the next thing, you have to go to this next tab here. You don't hit OK. You change everything you need to change, then you hit OK. That's one of the big problems I had. I kept hitting OK, and I'd have to go back in, and I ended up making multiple setups for something. That did not work out very well. Okay? Mode. Alright, mode relative stock, fixed box size. We don't want any of that. Relative is fine. That just means it's going to figure that you have at least a big enough piece of steel in there. Stock side offset, don't worry about that. Oh, stock offset mode, that's one that we need to change. No additional stock. The stock offset mode just basically puts like a little border around it that you can't cut into at all. That's only useful if you're doing like multiple pieces. Since we're just cutting one of these, no big deal. Okay, it wants a piece of steel 17.5 by 17.5. We put in 0.75 inches thick. I'm going to put in something a little bit smaller than that, and I'll show you later on where that actually matters. Post-process, I was just kind of naming it. We're going to do the actual post-process and actually load the file to where we need it to go in a later step. I'm going to call this the thimble wall mount. Is what it is. Alright, now since I took a look at all those tabs and all those tabs are correct, now I can hit OK. Alright, so that was setup. Turning you don't have to do anything with. That's just like if you had something like more of a, I believe it's for a CNC lathe. Boom. Cutting, definitely. Cutting is the biggest one that we have to do. Okay, now we definitely want to select the correct tool, okay, and we're going to be using inches here. So inch cutting tool, plasma cutter, and comes up with all of these default settings. All these default settings I've been using, they all work really, really fine. We'll be able to change our cutting feed rate later on if we need to. So I'm going to hit select, and we're all good. Okay, this right here, cutting feed rate, I'm going to leave it here at about 40 inches per minute because I'm going to do some thicker steel. 40 inches per minute, that will cut 0.25 inch, quarter-inch steel without a problem. We do bump it up when you're using 16 gauge steel, which is about a 1/16 of an inch thick. It's much, much thinner. We usually bump this up to around 100 inches per minute. I really honestly think I could probably get away with what I'm going to cut. I could probably get away with 60 inches per minute. You know what? I'm just going to do that. I think for my purposes, 60 inches per minute will be fine. If I was using full quarter-inch, I would keep it about 40 inches per minute. Okay? Now it changes. You change one, it changes all the other ones. Great. Don't hit OK yet. You want to change all these tabs before you hit OK. Geometry, this guy right here, honestly, it doesn't know what to cut yet. Okay? So, contour selection. Now I could hit every little line and every little circle here, but it's just going to be easier if I just click on the face that I want. And it will figure out, you see how these blue lines came up, these blue lines are actually what it's going to be cutting. Okay? It's a good time to make sure there's a blue line on everything that you want cut. But that was just one click, and it knows what to actually do. Okay? Heights. Heights are absolutely fine. Yeah. I have not ever messed with anything in these. The only thing would be retraction height. If you want on the plasma cutter it to actually physically pick up the nozzle higher before it goes to another cut, that's the only reason why you would want to change some of these. But they look absolutely fine. Alright. Passes, tolerance, that's a high tolerance, but that's good. Okay, we only want to go around one time. I always, whenever I have curves, I hit smoothing. That'll make a much smoother circle. It won't look like, you know, a 20-sided thing. I don't even know what that would be called. Alright, so we got that. Linking. Linking all looks pretty good. Lead and sweep angle, basically what it means is it's going to start like outside of where it actually wants to cut, and it's going to then move in at a 60-degree angle into what it needs to cut. That is absolutely fine. This lead-in distance, like how far out it starts, I think this is a little bit big. I'm going to make mine 0.125. I'm going to make an 1/8 of an inch right there. That'll be plenty good for our purposes. The only thing where that's important is the smaller the thing, like you might need a smaller lead-in distance. Like this is a 1/4 inch hole. If I had my lead-in distance more than a 1/4 inch, it won't cut those holes. It'll just skip them because it can't cut in there. So lead-in distance is pretty important. Alrighty, all of that looks great. I'm going to hit OK, and we should be ready to go. Okay. It went right into our simulation, which is great. It's just figuring out where it's going to cut and where it's going to move. Yellow lines are when it's retracted and moves. These lines here are where it's actually going to cut. I'm going to go into the simulation right here. We have our simulation here. This is the speed, how fast you're actually watching the simulation. But it looks like it's going to cut all the holes first, and then start at the top and go ahead and cut our rectangle right there. So that all looks good to me. Everything's getting cut that I need cut. So I'm going to exit the simulation. Alright, so we are up to there. Simulate. The simulation all looks fine. Our last step right here is our post-process. Okay? Now, post-process, I had to get this file here and I had to put it in my computer. All the computers in my classroom that have Fusion 360, this is the default. That's just a bit of code that I had to get from the manufacturer of our plasma table. And I already have it put in. Name, thimble, wall mount, that all looks good. All of this stuff here looks absolutely wonderful. Keep in mind, output folder, Jacob's Desktop Plasma Cutter. That's the actual folder that it is going into. Then you can copy and paste, put it on a flash drive, put it on another computer if you want it on another computer. Or I like to just pull it up on my own computer, on my laptop. just pull it up and run it from there because I have fire control on there. That's going to be a class tutorial right there. So got this all ready to go. I'm going to hit post. Bam, right there. Give it a little time. All right. It says here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but NC code successfully posted. .nc, that's the G code that the plasma cutter actually goes ahead and reads. So that is all ready to go. I showed you how to design stuff. I showed you how to prep it for manufacturing. Then it's either going to be another video or I'll show you live in class how to actually load onto the plasma cutter machine and actually cut it out. So fun, because once you can do this stuff, you can essentially make just really, really cool. Now we're going mostly, flat things, almost like looking 2D type things. But you can make some really, really cool stuff with it. So thank you so much. Hopefully this was helpful.